Testing, testing.
Now we won't make that mistake.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Today's Thursday, July 25th. We're going to start the school building committee at 8:39. We're going to start with our roll call. Brian Sylvia.
Here.
Dave Palizzetti.
Here.
Brian Mahoney here. Luke Murray.
Here.
Chip McGarr.
Here.
Terry Lynch.
Here.
Michael Pedraza.
Here.
And Robert Littlefield. Here. He is here. He is here. We are missing members Manny and Massananti at this time. So we're going to go to item number 2, discussion community correspondence. So for this one, I only had one correspondence from Elizabeth Hoyt from the Sustainability Committee, just asking about the current high school makeup of utilities, and I have a response going out to her, and that's the only thing we've received at this time. I don't believe Left Field or Mrs. Massananti received anything.
We have received a couple from Mr. Beasley.
Okay.
About those have gone off to the committee, Phil, Chris. So we're aware. It's mostly circling around geothermal and some incentives, and the Green Building Council was about LEED accreditation and et cetera. So we're aware of it. I mean, the boil down is that, you know, as Mr. Beasley has come many times, you'd like to see a green building with as much sustainable options as possible. So,
great, thank you. We're going to move on to number 3, discussion update information regarding July 30th public forum. So I'll turn that over to Phil Conti from Studio Jade.
Good morning, everyone. So I do have a draft presentation for the 30th Community Forum. I think it might be a good idea if I very quickly go through it and then listen to any questions, comments, or concerns, and we can make edits accordingly, etc. So this will be the opportunity for an interactive component to this, for some interactive polling. How that gets broadcast to the community, I think, is still a work in progress. Certainly anybody here will be able to, but if someone can view the presentation, they should also be able to participate, and then their results would show up here. So, Brian, if you would not mind, go to the next slide. So the agenda would have introductions, goal setting. We want to describe the activities that have been completed to date and the process that we're moving forward with, talk about design opportunities and challenges, and briefly touch on schedule and logistics, and then end with any next step discussion. So we can come back to this, but this is the agenda. Let's run through this to see if there's anything we're missing or want to add. Go ahead, next slide. This is where people can log on to participate for the questions that we have spread throughout the presentation. Next slide. First question is, how would you describe yourself? As a parent, guardian, student, resident, educator, business partner. If we think there are any, and maybe, here's what I can do. I can download a PDF of this presentation. I'll send it to you all. That way, if you have questions or comments, I can make these in the next several days.
Can they make? Can they select multiple categories there?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that'd be good too, especially with the Mentimeter, if we have some printouts here for people. Because I know when we've done the forums in the past, people going up to the boards, but if we have 10 copies of it in the audience, it'll let somebody just get on their phone and be able to do it.
Okay, yeah, good point. Or if they log on late, they'll have the information. Okay. All right. Next slide. This one is just a general question. We'd like to know if this is their first time attending a public event. Next. I think it's still important to ask people, how would they describe their understanding of the project? That's important to know for us as presenters, so we can tailor it accordingly. Plus, it continuously reinforces the commitment from the committee to the community and that we want them to be informed. Next slide. We'll run through introductions. We'll describe who all these people are, whether they are or are not in attendance. It doesn't matter. Just let everybody know who's part of the team and who's here. Should we add, there was a comment the other night that there may be town council representatives there. Should we put them on here too, or just leave it as this? Maybe we just leave it as the school building committee, because there may be school committee members in attendance too. So we don't want to, alienate anybody. So I think we'll just leave it as is. If something changes, let me know. Next slide. I think this is an important question to continue to ask. Right? We want it to be more and more yeses as we progress. And we want to know if some people still feel that they have not been heard yet. Next slide. So, goal setting, we want to remind the community that this is the beginning of continuing the dialogue with them. At today's meeting, we want to discuss the process and high-level expectations, listen to any comments or concerns they have, answer any questions that we're able to at this time. So, for example, when you get this presentation, if you think there should be other things said, just let me know. Next slide. So we do want to give them the opportunity to say if there's something else that they want to learn about today. This is an open-ended question. People would type in, I want to hear more about sustainability. I want to hear more about budget. Some of these questions we can answer, some of them we won't be able to, but I do think it's important to categorize them as we go through this process. Next slide. So quickly we'll talk about the activities completed to date and what's happening. I'll tell them that the construction manager has been engaged, and at this time they are working on preliminary scheduling and logistics for the project. The design team has conducted their program validation with the high school folks, and that is informing the schematic design that we're currently working on. And we are investigating sustainable features as we're working between the construction manager, the OPM, the school building committee, and the design team on planning for a geothermal test well. Next slide. So I do think we might want to know what an attendee feels is important to them, and we have 4 options for them to rank: athletic field design, sustainable features, high school design, schedule, and logistics. Again, we can add to this, we can change it, we can remove, but I think it's important to know who is attending and what they're interested in so that we at least touch on those points. Next slide. So we do want to talk about design opportunities and challenges, reminding everybody that we are maintaining the location of the high school as it was presented in the Stage 2. We do recognize that there are site constraints both at the high school location and at the proposed athletic fields, and we're making sure that we continue our due diligence in understanding what those constraints are, whether they're wetlands, whether they are abutters, etc. We're making sure to include the program and curriculum requirements through our validation effort with Chip and his staff. We want to be mindful of incorporating what we heard before, such as the auditorium, as public amenity spaces. We know that that's important. We want to let them know that we are continuing to recognize that. And we also understand that we want to be mindful of a couple things that are, beyond our control right now, but certainly impactful in the future, such as growth of enrollment, the influence of artificial intelligence, the ability for CTE programs to develop, etc. So those are the opportunities that we are keeping in mind, as well as the challenges in the schematic design process. Next slide. So I do want to provide at a very high level, a quick diagram that is developing through our schematic design evolution. The plan, as it's progressing, is very similar in layout to what was presented in stage 2. One unique opportunity that we are exploring now is rotating the academic tower, giving us a little bit more of a buffer between the building, the new high school, and the Hazard building. So that is one design feature that we are currently considering. For all intent and purpose, the academic tower in that peach color sort of went to the left so that it was a continuous bar. We're exploring about shortening up the bar, making it a little bit more compact, and rotating that academic tower. We think that that will help facilitate a number of things. One is construction. So now I'm speaking to you as a building committee, not necessarily part of the presentation. So I went off on a tangent here a little bit. Because in discussions that we have with the OPM and the CM, we want to be mindful of constructability, giving us a little bit more of a buffer. We think we're going to be able to take advantage of a couple things. Programmatically, it'll be a little bit more tighter. That means it'll be more efficient, easier to control. From a constructability standpoint, I think it's going to give the construction manager a little bit more room, give everybody a little bit more room to breathe. Now, that's just conceptual. We're working with the design team, but this is the direction we're trending in. For Chip and his group, still maintaining clear circulation paths, very simple in the building. The entrance is still where it is in that red dot. We do anticipate our geothermal test field to be still to the right of that building in that proposed parking area. That's being finalized now. And we think giving us a little bit more of a buffer to Hazard is going to be a good idea. So we can talk about that now. I'm not going to go into that much detail during the presentation next week. Just want to give you all a heads up.
Was this, we had talked about that a sneak-through road, as a possibility, like during the construction phase. This seems like this might offer that as an opportunity.
I believe you could have done it previously.
Yeah.
This makes it even, I don't
More
want to say
possible.
easier. It makes
But
it
possible.
more possible. How about that?
And then the other thing was, with the design team, we talked about, like, they did a nice analysis of all of our classes and how many kids are in those particular classes. And they found some efficiencies, not necessarily in our schedule, but more in terms of room sizes. So is that factoring in, meaning that we might be able to get away with some classrooms that are smaller in size, because for a class that only has 16 kids in it, you don't need a room that necessarily fits 27. So that was a theoretical question asked. Is that factoring into the possibility of having a smaller footprint for that?
Yeah, the design team is taking all of those program requirements and developing an actual floor plan, dimensions, so that they can show you what the design is. So I'd say yes, that's still a work in process. I couldn't tell you exactly where that one particular room may be right now, but certainly in the next couple of weeks that will be defined.
But so I guess a better way to ask it is, like, so then the efficiencies that they're finding based on conversations, that those 2 days worth of conversations, and also analyzing data, that they're thinking that we might be able to have this smaller footprint for the academic tower?
Yes. Next slide.
Phil, I just wanted to,
Nope.
I don't have an opinion on that, but I just anticipate a question from the folks that live on School Street, because you're getting a little closer to School Street, so I'd just be ready for that question.
Yeah, I agree, and this is really diagrammatical, these
Right.
blocks.
Yeah, I just expect that. And then, does this then does this provide more or less options for future expansion if that was ever required?
I'd probably say about the same. We know that that's something we want to keep in mind.
I would just say I'm going back out of the rabbit hole. So what you just heard is likely what you're here. So when you present this, I would present it in the format of this represents how we're looking at it, not what is.
Gotcha.
Right? So before you start saying, well, looking at this option, twisting this and moving that, it's we're looking at a number of options, this being one of them, and it's a work in progress. Keep it very high level because this is the rabbit hole you start going down.
Okay, good point. Thank you. Next slide. So the process that we're going to be moving through is a multi-step process. Begins with schematic design, followed by design development and construction documentation. And each one of those submissions is estimated and reviewed by the school building committee, the school committee, town council, and then submitted to the RIDE School Building Authority for their review. So there are a number of gateways that we will go through within the design process. Next slide. Another question for them to interact with is to rank the following spaces in terms of what they think is a priority. And they are academic spaces, faculty spaces, CTE spaces, athletic spaces such as the gymnasium, public spaces such as the auditorium, and student common spaces. This is just for them to interact with us and for us to have an idea of what is important to those that are present.
All right, just like a little, probably stupid thing, but you've got them labeled as first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. I think if you went like A, B, C, D, etc., or if you went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it might be better only because then it looks like you're kind of pre-ranking it accidentally.
Okay.
Because it's going to show up as like one, like ranked as one.
So it doesn't, on those, when you interact with it, it does
It's not going to show it.
doesn't show up.
Okay.
It just shows up as
Okay.
a list. And
That's
then
fine.
as people select,
It'll.
it'll
Okay.
adjust.
I just wanted to be, like, because I don't want anyone to say like you were leading them. That's all. Yep.
Hey, Phil.
Yes.
So I love the Mentimeter thing, but I also feel like if you're going to use it, it's got to extract something of value. I just question if we look at it and people say, yeah, I think the academic spaces are important, what does that actually tell us? Because it has nothing to do with programming the space. Like most of these have to be there, they're programmed. I guess most people want to get to their questions, right? And so the Menti stuff is great, but what I found in the past ones is I was sitting there in the crowd going, when are we going to actually be able to give input, right? And so for a half hour, we're going to give this presentation. All people are going to be doing is sitting here saying, when do I get to say what I want to say? Or ask the question I want to ask? So my only recommendation would be is if these questions don't serve any critical value to you or the committee, then just get rid of them. I don't know how others feel about that, but I kind of feel like I look at this and it's like, what am I going to do with this data? I think a gymnasium is important or not important. Well, we need a gymnasium. So right, it's not going to drive the process. So that's my only general feedback is if any of these Mentimeters are just filler, get rid of them. Let's get to the questions. People want to say what they need to say. That's all.
That's fine. Good point.
Phil, if I may, I would also just like to put that this is a school building project, so I would say on this one, after the academic spaces, what would be your priorities? I mean, we're building schools, so all of those things are part of the educational program. However, as a school, it's first priority. Before you're an athlete, you're a student athlete. Before you're a performer, you're a student performer. So I would just frame it in terms of, for my personal, would be to frame after the academic spaces, because that would be the priority. What would be the next priority?
Okay, good point.
I just want to say I agree with what Luke brought up too, because the first forum structurally went a little more straightforward, but the second forum we had, there was a lot of interruption, and you and Chris and everybody who was up there were taking questions in between Mentimeters, in between schematic design. So I think the more room or space or even pauses in between a slide of does anyone have any questions on this topic? And we keep it structured, because I know last time a lot of people were, or someone would ask a question about the design of the building, and then 5 minutes later, someone who missed it or wasn't listening at that time asked the same question again to you guys.
Okay. Next slide. So this is where we can do both then, right? This one is, what comments or concerns do you have regarding the new high school building? So I can take out the previous slide as filler, and we'll immediately get to this question. So we can take questions live. We can ask, if people want to anonymously ask a question or virtually ask a question, it will show up here. So I would say, Luke, this is the first opportunity that people get to voice their questions or comments.
Yeah, old school's good too. I mean, we have mics here. We can just say, "Do you have any questions?"
Yeah,
Air it out. Like
Yep.
instead of getting to the Mentimeter and waiting 5 minutes for everyone to put in their questions, and we say, "Okay, let's take it down the list." Just cast the microphone out and say, "All right, what do you got?"
And we will do so. The Mentimeter gives you just another opportunity to make sure if someone's not comfortable speaking that they can still ask their question, or if they're not here, they can still ask a question. Next slide. This one concerns the athletic fields. Same question. You want to talk about the athletic fields. I mean, those are the two main things. You're either going to have a question about the high school or you're going to have a question about athletic fields. So we can quickly get to these two questions and entertain their comments. Next slide. Schedule and logistics, we think it's important to provide a high-level update on that. We want them to know that as the CM and the OPM and the design team are working through this, we are maintaining a couple guiding principles here, which is that the safety for the students, staff, and the community is a priority, separation of construction activities, maintaining access for pickup and drop-off, understanding that we want to limit disruption. So these are basically our guiding principles that we're using to develop the schedule and the logistics plan, mostly the logistics plan that we are preparing now and will continue to prepare throughout the design process prior to any type of site mobilization. And here's a slide, for example, if there's other key points that you think we should add to make sure the community knows that we're being mindful of. And that limit disruption is obviously to the abutters, to the students, etc., the community. Next slide. High-level discussion. Now, some of this I want to talk about with the building committee, for example. We're looking for schematic design with estimates around October or November. That's what I told the town council the other night. We're going to be completing our work earlier so that we can have estimates done, etc. Between that October timeframe and any type of site mobilization, we'll be going through the design and documentation phase that we talked about earlier, design development and construction documentation. I threw this on here. This is for a building committee question. Do we want to start considering taking down Curtis Corner earlier, like this winter? I don't know. You can say, Phil, just take that off. We're going to continue to discuss it. I'll defer to the OPM and the CM on what their opinion is of that. I just put that on there. Anticipated high school site mobilization, I'm saying, is spring of 2025. The expected construction duration right now is 24 months. And the athletic field duration is about 9 months. And I put another date on here, maybe beginning in spring of 2026. So as a building committee, we should talk about this and then tell me to either take some of these off or not. But again, we're sort of diverging just a little bit.
I think part of the discussion we've had is that, Curtis Corner coming down, potentially to save more money internally, because we are currently paying for electricity, basic utilities, fire safety, pest control, just to keep the building, there. So I know that's part of the discussion we've had. And then 2, to, buy it out early, because again, it would save on the back end of the project money. So I think there is, a lot of positive reasons to take it down sooner rather than later.
So I would agree with that. My only question as far as this is, I haven't heard from the OPM and Jill Bain and everything that winter is feasible and that we can lock in and get somebody out there. So I'd be cautious of throwing this out at a community meeting as far as saying any dates. I would just put it more in frame context of we're looking at advancing that schedule.
Okay.
So you can talk to it in broad terms of that we're looking at, because it may be spring. We don't know, depending on schedule and everything else, but I just hate to lock that in into any sort of. But obviously, you can speak to the fact that we're looking at a possible earlier demo construction of athletic facility. That'd be my only suggestion.
And what about the athletic field piece? I mean, it's obviously related to the demolition piece.
I would say the same thing, because what if we can advance the athletic facility even earlier, right? That would be my question, because, could we, as soon as we get demo done, can we be out there starting to grade the site and start doing prep work? So that may even advance. So we're, again, throwing, like, the one thing that we've talked about in our logistics meetings that we're kind of certain right now is spring, late spring is start of the high school. So that one, I think we can put out there with some certainty, because that's the schedule we've worked on. I don't think we've worked much on the athletic schedule yet. So unless that's being advanced and you have some certainty on the Gilbane or left field side, then I would probably keep any commitments out of it.
All right, so I'll remove seasons and years from those two and just talk about, early consideration or something like that. Because I feel someone's going to ask us that question, so I'd like to get ahead of it, but I'm with you. Okay. Next slide. This is just another opportunity that will open it up for additional questions, comments, or concerns regarding the logistics, things that may be important to them, in case we haven't mentioned it in our guiding principles. And again, we can open up the mic at that time as well. We'll keep it very casual, informal, and that's how these things evolve anyway here. Next slide. I think it's important to keep this question. Do you know where to find additional information online about the project? If they don't, we will have a slide after this that directs them to the appropriate website for updates. And I think the next slide may be the last slide. Yes. So that's the bulk, that's the presentation. We'll keep it very interactive. My takeaways are I'll delete any filler Mentimeter slides, and then I will adjust the schedule and logistics slide for Curtis Corner accordingly. And then, of course, anything that you all want to add. I will be mindful in any future rankings that we put the academic component first. I completely get it.
And it might have been, as I sat here and went through it, because thinking back to the previous slide where you had those blocks, if you're looking for the input on, which of these blocks that I've just presented to you piques your interest in that way, and I potentially lost the frame of that, and that was just so something to be.
No, I completely get it, and I think, Luke, you understand. There's a fine line between getting valuable input from people who have concerns, but they're not architects or engineers, so they don't know the details, or an educator, so they don't know some of that. A balance between getting actual data that we can use and asking questions that may make them feel like they have a chance to voice their opinion. But I think we're giving them other opportunities to voice that opinion through other questions and certainly live debate.
The one thing I don't think we're getting, which I thought we were going to get out of this session, is more of, we're going into schematic design. So one of the big things is, what's that building going to look like? Because 90% of the community who does not go within the four walls of that building, all they care about is when they drive by, what's the interface look like? What's the gel of the community? And so out of this presentation, while we're answering some questions and we're kind of soliciting some feedback, I think we need to direct them more in saying, kind of like we did previously, maybe not at that extent, where we laid out 50 images of buildings and said, what do you like? But showing the existing building, or I say existing building, the conceptual drawing of the building as it sits today, and saying, do you like this? Do you not like it? What would you change? Do you feel like it reflects the community character? What would you change? You know, so that way people can say, well, I like the look of stone or brick, or I'd like to look like the Guild or the Hazard Building, or I'd like more modern with a portico. I think those things, I'd like to get out of this because we won't have another opportunity anytime soon as you get through this building design to get that input. So the other comment I had is, I didn't see one image of the conceptual design as it sits now. And if I'm walking in this room cold and I haven't really paid attention to the project, I don't even know what that design is or what it looks like. So I would suggest we start off the presentation with, here's what we went to bond with. Not fixed in stone, but this is the point where if you want to tweak it, or you have some major concerns, now's the time. Set that tone early, but I think seeing the image and setting them up to have that visual is going to be very effective. So those are my two big points, because I want to make sure, again, going back to what do we want to get out of the session? I want to, for myself, speaking for myself, I don't know about the rest of the building committee, I want you to have that input from the community, so when you come out with a design in a couple months, the community doesn't say, wait a minute, this isn't what we talked about. And then we're in October and we have to go back. You know, I don't want to have to go back to another design session because people are like, that's not what we thought we were buying. So I'll stop talking.
No, I agree. And I think maybe at the start of the presentation, a couple slides too, just to introduce where we've been, where we're now. Because at that last forum, we had a great turnout. Both of the last two forums, we had a great turnout. But I feel specifically the last one, we had a lot of people who had known maybe 20% of what this project was. They were showing up thinking we were building a stadium on the old high school field. They were thinking, you know, is it at Curtis? Is it a high school? There was a lot of questions that came along of people who are so fresh. So I think really starting with an overview of this was approved on this date, here's what we're moving forward with, and then, like Luke said, the design elements I think will be a big aspect.
Okay, yeah, I think that's fine. I know from working with the design team from a plan standpoint, it's pretty close to where we left off. I don't know how well people have understood the plans, but I can tell you as an architect, we're pretty close. So just a couple key moves, which I think enhance the design. So then from the exterior perspective, I think that's probably a good thing to do. We can show some of the renderings. We can ask for comments about massing and, you know, the materials to see what they think of the current, because I could see it easily translate to the new design.
I think Chris Spiegel took the group out to a couple high schools, right? One of them being more of a historical, like, manufacturing community. And I think showing what some even local communities have done to reflect their community character. Because again, I don't think, you know, the minutia of where the classrooms are and the academic core, like, that stuff Chip cares about. And I think ultimately the community will care about, but I think it's that look, that feel. Doral being one of them, he's mentioned, you know, what about pitched roofs? Could we do, you know, areas where we, instead of going with the flat roof concept, go, I don't know. You know, I look at Exeter West Greenwich School, that's a very different building than, you know, Coventry High School or East Greenwich, you know, so they all have their own flavor. So I think the community is really looking for something different. Like, not different in the sense of different architecturally, but different than the flat roof 60 style structure, obviously. So,
And maybe that could be one of those open-ended many-meter of what design element would you like to see, physical design element would you like to see as part of this building? That might be a good one to put in there.
Yeah, that's fine. We can put some images on here that they can, you know, react to.
Does anyone have any further questions for Phil about the presentation? Okay. Thank you, Phil.
All right, great. Thank you.
Nice job. We're going to move on to item number 4, discussion general project update from Left Field, Studio Jade, and Gilbane.
Hey guys, Jim Rogers from Left Field. Chris is on vacation. You'll find that Chris is a much better presenter than myself, but I'll do my best. So we've been working with the team to drill down on the schedule a bit. So the schematic design is due at the end of September. 3 weeks later, we'll have that priced, and by the end of October, we'll know where we are from a schematic design perspective and a cost. From there, we've been working with Phil's group and the Gilbane folks on a overall schedule, and right now we're planning to start the project and probably start in late spring of next year. We're working with Phil's group to develop some early packages around site, concrete, and steel. We're working with Gilbane on a construction duration, and our goal is to finish as early as possible in 27. Again, probably, hopefully, late spring, where we would have the full summer to do punch list commissioning and FF&E. So that's the goal, and we'd be an orderly start to the school year of 27. In the meantime, to help inform Phil's schematic design, he is developing some specs and a location around a geothermal test pit. And the hope is that Phil's able to generate that information in the next week, at which point Gilbane will give that information to the well driller, and I think we're targeting somewhere between the end of August and mid-September or thereabouts. We need to again feed that information to the well drillers and get it back from them. But that's what we're hoping, somewhere within that time frame, to get the test well. That'll inform the design for the MEPs, and we can include that information hopefully as part of the schematic design as it comes out. I'll send it over to Phil to see if he has any other information he'd like to update us on.
Thanks, Jim. I think the only thing I'll add, for example, in case Dave, if you're interested in this piece, is that as we approach schematic design for MEPs regarding the mechanical system, we're proceeding with 2 approaches and narratives. One being a geothermal system, the other being right now an air heat pump chiller with fan coil units as our other process towards coming up with systems that may be acceptable to the school department. That's part of our schematic design submission.
Yeah. So the air-cooled heat
pump chiller?
Yeah. So fan coils for either, though, right? Fan coils.
Yes. So it's, for all intent and purpose, the equipment inside of the building, kind of the same.
Same. It's just whichever.
It's
the
just
source
what's
for the
going
energy.
to be the source. It's
Right.
either geothermal, which would move towards the highly sustainable feature, or then a
Electric.
very efficient electrification of a heat pump chiller.
Yeah. No, either's good. Obviously, geo's better, but you're going to want the fan coils.
Yeah. So we understand. I just wanted to let you know that's our position for schematic design.
Phil, there was an open, maybe this isn't the right time for it, but there was a question about admin moving to Hazard. Has that been discussed in schematic design at all? The admin space is moving out of Curtis Corner, moving to admin, possibly repurposing the administrative building at Curtis Corner.
So similar to, the building has been the priority. It's what we've mostly been talking about. However, running parallel to this is the Curtis Corner site and what we want to do there. So we are, as a design team, we are going to go ahead and start scheduling some meetings with the appropriate people to talk about the athletic component in Curtis Corner Field. And we need to bring that up to the same level that the building is going in terms of scheduling and logistics. So I believe at those meetings, that's where this discussion will occur. Yeah, so we're going to start bringing that schedule and logistics up for that to align with the building.
Can you guys take me through, as an athletic director, Hazard Field in the next month? Is anything going to be happening out there? Because we'll have football practice that'll be starting in 3 weeks. And if we have to find an alternative, I've got an alternative site, but we've got to coordinate moving equipment. It's also going to affect, if it goes farther into the school year, our phys ed classes do use that. They use that field.
So what will impact you would be the geothermal test well. Our intent right now is to place it in the far east corner. Now that's just, although it's like an 8-inch hole, we are going to go down 800 feet. So it's not as clean as just a little area, right? There's going to be mobilization around it, etc. So we need to come back to you with what that's going to look like. But if you could imagine what I'm talking about in the far east, that's the area that we're looking at. Do you have activities happening in that block? Basically, it's like a square back there.
No, we wouldn't have it in that area. So again, that's fine if that's going to be in that area. I just need to know, just so we can start planning, that's all.
So I believe once we finalize that area and we have someone on board, we'll do a logistics plan for that so you understand what to expect in that area.
Phil, when you guys come back in October with the schematic design, are you anticipating having athletics as part of that, like so we can see the bigger picture of the entire budget?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think, just to Dave's question, I think at that point we have to, I mean, obviously, like you said, the building drives the project, and so we have to look at the whole budget, see what we have available money-wise if we wanted to consider doing something with admin. So I think if we're already over budget at that point, we have issues, that's going to drive a little bit of our decision making. So I just want to make sure that we have the whole pie.
Okay, does anyone have any further questions? Okay, part of I'll keep you guys up there, or if Mark, you want to join in too. Discussion of the high school hazard site walkthrough. We did about 2 weeks ago. If you guys want to talk to that and kind of what we did and.
Yep. So we met with Chip and yourself and T from left field and myself, and we took a walk around the facility, taking a look at what the impacts are going to be to the high school, where the new bus loop could go, where the new student drop-off could go, and whether we're going to need that area in the back. Great meeting. I think we've pretty much decided the bus loop can stay at the front of the building. We're not going to touch that area in the back parking lot, so we're not going to be going through the community. That's not going to be needed. I think the biggest hurdle that we need to do is create a pathway right alongside Hazard that will take you from School Street across Hazard and then back down where the existing bus loop is now, and that will be the new student drop-off, parent-student drop-off. As we just saw from Phil's current design, that it looks like that's going to be able to be happening. So that worked out well. We took a look at the existing horticulture program and moving the greenhouse from its current location, again, down by where that existing bus loop is, alongside the building there. Looks like everything will fit there. Talked about some maybe interaction with the students, maybe doing some of the construction. Certainly the CTE group, the horticulture group, being active as well, becoming a part of working with us to do that. So that worked out well. And then the other big thing we looked at is like a little bit of low-hanging fruit that I thought about, having a little bit of insight on how Hazard is currently being utilized in the available space. savings could be developed by maybe letting us use some space inside of Hazard for our field office, as well as left field and Phil's group. Quick numbers, taking a look at it after we left, you're probably looking at, $125,000, give or take. And that would be the savings from Gilbane not providing field office trailer and utilities and all the other things associated with it. There was available space that Chip pointed out to us up on the upper level, the two corners, which looks perfect. It's got bathrooms up there. Minimal impact to the existing programs that are going on there. So I think we are going to offer that, I guess, as a proposal for you guys to talk about and maybe bring to the town council if need be, or to the school committee. And again, that number would be for just Gilbane's portion of that trailer, without seeing the specs or anything written. If there was an OPM trailer and a design trailer as well, you could theoretically double that number, right? So you're looking at some significant savings if we're able to use that. And a little self-serving. It's a little nicer to sit in there than it is in a trailer. But so yeah, that was our meeting. It went well. And if I'm missing anything, Brian or Chip, I think that's pretty much everything we went over.
No, and I think, part of it, we just got to look into because there are students in the building, we just have to look into some logistics there, and we'd already talked briefly with Michael about that, Brian and I had. So I think it's definitely, because of the savings, worth looking into.
Absolutely, yeah.
To see if it can work.
It's probably the cost of the test hole for the geothermal. So.
Yeah, and I just want to stress too that that pathway, that sneak through road, being able to pull that off would be huge for two reasons. One is it would actually create a much longer place for parents to park while they're waiting for their kids, so that would mean less impact on Columbia Street and School Street. And the other piece of it is that doesn't then necessitate the opening up the exit out of the senior lot to into that other neighborhood where it's currently blocked off. So I think being able to pull that off, that was a big part of that discussion about can we pull that off, and it seeming more likely that we can. So that's just awesome because that will help. I think everyone will feel better about that part.
It is, and I think if the committee could make that decision, or at least look into that, I think it would be something that Phil's group would need to probably put into the drawings sooner than later, and we'd be buying that out as part of the project. I mean, it's going to be a temporary road, but it's going to have to meet all the codes and everything for the public to use and whatnot. So there'll be a little bit of design element to it as well.
And I think we discussed too, it's something that could be closed off during the school day, so only really open around arrival and dismissal, so that during the school day no one else is using it to come onto campus.
Yep.
Have members of public safety, were they part of that conversation, or schematics been sent? Okay, that would be the one piece as well.
Anything else, Bri?
No, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? No. Thank you very much.
Okay.
At this time, I wanted to propose to add to the agenda an update on town activities, just to give a quick brief.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Vote.
All in favor?
Aye. I just wanted to take the opportunity, because I'm going to be away for a week and a couple of weeks. I don't know if we'll have another opportunity to link up. So I just want to give a quick update on the conversion, because I know it's a hot topic. The town council mentioned it the other night. The application is substantially complete, and I'll be reviewing that. Dennis has been working on it with me, and I'll be there's a couple components that boxes we have to check as part of that. One of them being that we have to have a public session to discuss the conversion. And it can't be in a session governed by the building committee or the school department. The DEM requires it to be more of a facilitated in a open forum, more like council. So I'm going to work on getting that on a council work session, So that way we can, and it's really about equity. Typically, you know, if you're moving a property, you're converting for another property in another part of town, it may disenfranchise certain individuals who may utilize a certain open space. That's not our project. However, we still have to check the box. So we'll be having that session. We have to have it as part of the application process. Once we check that box, we can complete the application and we can get it in. Now that said, there's a couple other hurdles, including an appraisal that needs to be done and a yellow book review. So all of these things are typical. Again, we have a very straightforward conversion because it's on site. Typically, the regulations are built around converting for an off-site property. So I just want everyone to know it's going well. We've been in constant communication with Paul Jordan from DEM, who runs that program, and I feel confident that we won't have any issues. As far as other updates, the contract was approved the other night by the council for Studio Jaden Slam. So we're finalizing those contract details, and that'll get executed. Just for those who don't know, we're already set with Gilbane. Left Field was approved, and we've signed off on that contract. So we're really in a good place with the project team of having them in place. I have RFQs on my desk for the environmental engineer. That's not a high priority, although it does need to be done over the next month and brought to council. So that'll be probably the last contract in a little bit till we get to the commissioning agent. And then the last thing I'll discuss is we've had some discussion on how to deal with the request to award and how we're going to create a process for that, because we need to do early buyout packages, and we're aware of that. In addition, there's a financing component of that, and you know, Brian's working on that, of looking at the cash flow and determining when bond anticipation notes are going to be needed, because we obviously have to cover the funds for the project and when those big tickets items come in. So I'll say this, while Gilbane and Left Field are in the room, we need to know early if big buyout packages are going to happen. So I see like winter demolition, that's a bigger package, right? We don't have money sitting in a bank account we can just tap for something like that. So we're going to have to look at financing sooner than later if that is a reality. So we just need to know. And that's it, unless anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Luke. We're going to move on to the next, number 6, public comment. Seeing no members of the public, we'll move on to the next item. Discussion action set next meeting agenda items. Currently, I have on the agenda, or for our next meetings, I have the July 30th forum, 6 to 8 p.m. in Town Hall. And then our next meeting for the school building committee will be August 8th and then August 22nd. Does anybody have anything on the setting of the next meetings? Okay, and if anyone has any agenda items they'd like to see, please send those along in the before. We usually set it about 3 to 4 days before. On the Monday, we have our Monday morning meeting for any late minute additions, but please let myself and Kate know. Okay, we'll move on to number 8, adjourn. Can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion to adjourn at 9:32.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting ends 9:32. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Hey,
Enjoy your break.
Yeah, take your time while you can. Yep. Enjoy the summer.
that's what you got to do, yeah? I'll see you
Tomorrow's
soon,
supposed to be
Michael.
nice.